Hello, everyone. This is Week back again on another fragrance chat. Today, I'm not going to review a special fragrance. I decided to talk about a little bit of vintage fragrances and current fragrances, new releases, and give you my opinion. And also, if you have an opinion, I'll be glad to read your comments and we can exchange together our point of view. Why I am a fragrance vintage fragrance lover is because I really found that the vintage fragrances were more sophisticated, more potent, and they were more skilled in the manner of the process the perfumer made those fragrances compared to today fragrances. Today, fragrances are very, if you look at the scent pyramid, they are less complex, more, how we can say, more crowd pleaser, and they are targeted to find their own easy grab customers. And they are not trying to make fragrances that will last through the times. And I'm going to develop this subject with you. Before they were trying to make fragrances that will endure during the times and last through the decades and even through the centuries. That was the case for most of the fragrances until 80s. And brands, they were not making fragrances. Hello, Dushan, how are you? How are you doing? I hope you are fine and happy that you are here. Fragrances, they were made, were enduring the test of time. And this is very important, and they were not fragrances. There are just different flankers from my Wi-Fi collections, and there are just different flankers. You're welcome. I'm not talking about a precise fragrance. I'm talking about the difference between vintage fragrances and today's fragrances. And as I said, fragrances were made to last. Fragrances were made to endure the test of times and to become classics, to become timeless fragrances. And that's why they are even now, today, they are still available, even reformulated. People are buying them. I give you a few examples. For example, Chanel number 5 was made in 1932 or 1936, if I'm not wrong. Well, is still a bestseller. Another fragrance that come to my mind is Youth Dew by Estee Lauder. That fragrance was made in 1953, and after 70 years, is still a bestseller and is even reformulated. Lots of people loves that fragrance, and they buy that fragrance, and the list goes on. You have a Air du Temps by Nina Ricci, which is also a very old fragrance by the house of Nina Ricci, also a bestseller. And to the male fragrances, we have Abbey Rouge, which is also a very old fragrance, was made in 1964 by Guerlain. It's still a bestseller. We have Pour un homme de Caron, which is a very old fragrance too. It's almost 80 or 85 years old, and it's the king of lavender. It still is the bestseller of the house of Caron. Also, we have Old Spice, the original Old Spice, which is also a bestseller, and it's a very vintage fragrance. And Philas, I have Philas, and they have a fantastic fragrance, Philas by Nina Ricci. I reviewed Philas, is on my playlist. You can check it out. Great fragrance, great leathery patchouli fragrance. So all those fragrances were the list is goes on, and we can talk about many more about those fragrances from the 20th century, from the past century, and those fragrances were made to endure the test of times. They were not a fragrance that was made to be forgotten. Those fragrances, they really passed the different uh, scales, and they became classic. They became milestone in the world of the perfumes. And really, you cannot get that feeling with the current fragrances, because the current fragrances are not made to endure the test of times. They are made to just please immediately, to be a crowd pleaser, and it's a kind of ready to wear. You wear it, you like it, but you forget about it, and you buy another flanker. Maybe you buy another flanker of the same line. For example, how many flankers they made from the line of Gucci? They made, I don't know, 9 or 10 already, and they end up with the Gucci elixir. But before, you never had flankers. Before, you had only one fragrance. For ladies, you had perfume and you had eau de toilette. And for gentlemen, you had eau de toilette and aftershave. But that's it. You never had a flankers. For example, Eau Sauvage by Christian Dior, which was released in 1964, was the block was a true blockbuster. Was a worldwide blockbuster. Was a fragrance of Steve McQueen, and you didn't have any flanker of Eau Sauvage until 2000. Eau Sauvage was only available in Eau de Toilette and in aftershave. I'm talking about the original Eau Sauvage. I'm not talking about the different flankers that were made by François Demachy, like Eau Sauvage Cologne, Eau Sauvage Parfum. Okay, those are maybe nice, but to me, the original Eau Sauvage was the masterpiece of the citrusy fragrances. Unfortunately, it has been reformulated and has been really toned down over the years. But we had only aftershave and eau de toilette, and that was enough. It was enough because that was absolutely enough for the gentlemen of that time. They didn't ask for more. They also had a soap bar, or maybe a soap shaving cream, and that was fairly enough for them, and they really had a great time with that. Or even they had colognes, for example, like 4711 or Cano by Dana, or those stuff, those classic stuff. So what happened? In the 70s, we started to have a very more sophisticated fragrances, heavy fragrances, with lots of aromatic fougères, lots of oak moss fragrances, leather fragrances. Fragrances became more and more sophisticated, but still were great and were very rich, and they were very potent, very satisfying. For example, I give you a couple of examples. In the 70s, we had Paco Rabanne pour Rome. We had Bogart Signature by Jacques Bogart. And we had Brut by Fabergé. Fantastic. I'm talking about the original Brut by Fabergé. And the list goes on, the 70s fragrances, Yatagan by Caron. Those fragrances were potent, were absolutely room fillers and compliment getters, and different from the fragrances from 60s and 50s. 60s and 50s fragrances were more citrusy, more calm, more clean, and less loud. In 70s, fragrances became more loud and more daring, I can say. And we regret that because those fragrances are not available anymore. Or even if they are still around, they have been reformulated and they have been toned down. So they are not satisfying as there were in the 70s or in the 80s. In the 80s, we started to have again stronger, louder fragrances for gentlemen and for ladies. In the 90s, the fragrances became more ozonic, more clean fragrances. They started to just to calm down and more relaxed. And it's not my favorite decade. The 90s are not my favorite decade. My favorite decades were 60s, 70s, and 80s. And also, I love fragrances, the vintage fragrances from the 30s. For example, a fragrance such as Cuir de Russie by Chanel. Fantastic fragrance for ladies and for gentlemen. It's leathery. It's a beautiful fragrance. Or Knitze 10, fantastic fragrance, leathery fragrance for gentlemen. Those were fragrances from the beginning of the 20th century. They're still available, but not the same they used to be for sure, because they have been reformulated and they have been altered, but still available and still satisfying for many of us, but not for me. Unfortunately, my demands are higher. I really Knitze 10 Golden Edition. Yeah, it's a nice one too, Dushan. I tried that one too. It's a nice one too, but I prefer the original Knitze 10. This is my personal choice, but it's a nice one. It's a nice one. Absolutely, it's a nice fragrance. In the 60s, we had the blockbusters such as Aramis, fantastic fragrance by, it's one of the best Chypre fragrances we ever had for gentlemen, composed by Bernard Chant. And later, he made also Aramis 900. He made also Devin Aramis, and he made also GHL, all for the House of Estee Lauder. Fantastic fragrances, timeless fragrances. Unfortunately, discontinued by now. 2 years ago, the House of Estee Lauder decided to discontinue the gentleman's line, so they only kept Aramis Original and they discontinued the rest. Go and ask why. What happened later in 2000? Fragrances, they started to become ready to wear. They started to become fragrances, just one-shot fragrances. You buy it, you wear it for a couple of months, and then next flanker will come. So the game of fragrances changed, and also the quality for me became very um, not bad, but very mainstream, very just crowd pleaser. And brands, they started to copy each other's. They started to make similar fragrances, and it's the quality, the standards were lowered down, and we started to lose more and more great fragrances from the past, and brands, they started to discontinue their oldies, and they started to make new fragrances that they were not as good as their big brothers or big sisters. And unfortunately, customers, they had no choice to accept the deal. And even the big houses such as Guerlain, they decided to, for example, to discontinue their best fragrances in the world for gentlemen, which was Derby. I don't know why they decided to discontinue Derby. I still remain a mystery for me, because Derby for me was one of their best creation, and today people are searching, are hunting for the vintage bottle of Derby, and the prices are crazy. They buy it up to thousands of dollars. Vintage fragrances and Derby bottles are soaring. Another fragrance that became very rare and very expensive is Patou Pour, another masterpiece from the house of Jean Patou, which is discontinued completely, and they relaunched another Patou Pour in 2013, which has nothing in common with the original Patou Pour. Unfortunately, that was a flop. So, what happened in the world of the fragrances is a very puzzling world because now brands they became just a kind of bogey trap. You buy a fragrance and you wear it. 6 months later, they discontinue and they replace it with another flanker. You like or you don't like, that's a choice. You cannot keep continuing to buy a fragrance continuously like before. And you have to adapt yourself. I disagree with that policy because I think it's a tricky policy. And this policy make the standards lower and lower and lower. And nowadays, the fragrances are made by computers, not even perfumers. Most of the perfumers they don't even supervise the process of the fragrances. The fragrances are made by computers, and the perfumer they are just there to give their final word, even if they give their final word. So this is for me. I'm sorry to say it's rubbish. And even brands such as Dior, Guerlain, or even Chanel, with their own in-house perfumer, they don't dare to release a new fragrances. Look, for example, for 15 years, we haven't got a single male fragrance from the house of Chanel. And it's the same thing with Guerlain. They release lots of flankers of Abbey Rouge, Homme Ideal, or stuff like that, but they don't dare to release a new male fragrance. I don't know what, you know, now they released the flanker of Abbey Rouge Parfum, Vetiver Parfum, Homme Ideal Parfum, but what's next? The next will be what? Will be Abbey Rouge Elixir, Homme Ideal Elixir, Vetiver Elixir. Why they don't come up with a new fragrance to to just dare to release a new male fragrance and say, okay, we'll release that. You like or you don't like, guys? They don't dare because they are playing on a safe mode and they just want to have a cash grab. And this is very puzzling for me because I think we don't have lots of choices and we don't have lots of opportunities. It's a boring world of the flankers, and we have to just satisfy ourselves with new flankers, or we have to hunt desperately vintage fragrances. But vintage fragrances, they won't last forever. You know, even you buy one, even you buy two vintage fragrances from the past, you know very well that when they are over, you cannot find them anymore. Because, you know, fragrances are not made to last forever. Fragrances, by the cycle of times, they will alter and automatically they lose their tenure and they lose their quality. So this is a sad truth about fragrances, and we have to keep them in a very special temperature. Oh, that's a nice one. The Andy Tower made also, yeah, Andy Tower made a good fragrances. I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah, Andy Tower made a good fragrances. He tried. It's like Andy Tower is a guy like, he's exactly a guy like Frederick Malle. Frederick Malle made great fragrances for almost 20 years. And finally he sold his company to Estee Lauder and he left the building, you know. So brands are like that, you know. So they don't last anymore. Nobody will. Even Tom Ford sold his company to Estee Lauder. Even Creed is not anymore a family business; belong to Caring Group. So this is the world of money. This is the world of business. This is not anymore the world of passion. And the family business are over. Only the Spanish brand Puig still belong to Puig family, and they own lots of brands. They own Paco Rabanne. They own also Nina Ricci, and they own many Spanish brands, in their heart. So what we say is very simple. I don't know we share the same opinion or not. The quality of fragrances are less good than before. There is no doubt about it. We don't argue on that. You have to pay $500 nowadays to buy a niche quality fragrance that might be exceptional. But before, you never spend that much money to get a bottle of Frankel. The fragrances were good with 80, 70, 75, $100. They were fabulous. But today, no. Today, you have to spend $500, $600 to get a good fragrance quality. This is the first thing. And also, we are through with flankers. Flankers is killing the game. I'm sorry to say, flankers are boring. How many flankers do you need? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not collecting the bottles. I'm not collecting the boxes. I'm searching for good fragrance. Brands, they don't dare to release new fragrances. They only play safe mode, and they release only flankers of a good blockbuster. If they keep releasing flankers of Guilty by Gucci, it means that this line works. Otherwise, they will not even release a flanker. So the whole game has changed, and we are witnessing that changes, and we have no solution. The only solution we have is to accept the game, and that's it. So among that, we can time to time find a great fragrance, but even that one will not last. I give you an example. Ombre Noir by Lalique. Fantastic fragrance. A very unique smell. Now discontinued. It's discontinued. It's not anymore available on their website. It's not available nowhere. Why? Go and ask why. Even if they release a great fragrance, somehow this fragrance will not last. And somehow they discontinue the production after a couple of years. So something is really wrong, with the perfumes game. That wasn't the case before. That wasn't the case before until 80s. The game changed from 80s. Until 80s, the brands, they had their fragrances available and the quality was there. They were not releasing flankers after flankers after flankers, and they kept their originals, and they try to release a solid fragrance every 5 years or every 10 years, but at least was a solid release. Fragrances from the House of Rochas, from Chanel, from Christian Dior, they were solid releases. Now, they only release flankers, very, very average flankers, and you don't have a choice. You buy or you don't buy. That's it. So unfortunately, as a fragrance lover, I really find the game has changed for me. I am less satisfied than before. I am very bored of all those flankers in the market. And I think we have to do something. As a customer, we have the right to say, hey, who is the one who buy your flankers? It's me. I will not buy them anymore. So do something else. Where is your creativities? Where is your inspiration? What happened to you guys? Do something. Come up with something new. Dare something new. Francis Kurkjian is at the Christian Dior in-house perfumer. He haven't released a new male fragrance. Oliver Polch, he's an in-house perfumer at the House of Chanel. He haven't released a new male fragrance either. And there's the same thing at Guerlain. The last fragrance that Guerlain launched was Homme Ideal. The rest are flankers. No, we want something. We don't want Homme Ideal flankers anymore. We want something new. So they got to listen to us. So that's it, my friend. I think today I really talk a lot. It's very unusual for me. So I'm going to very brief. Overall, I prefer vintage fragrances for 3 reasons. High quality, no doubt about it. performance, great. Prices, affordable. And today's fragrances, I don't like. Low quality, performances are very average. Prices are soaring and soaring and soaring. Gucci Guilty Elixir costs $180. $180 for 60 ml. Why? How is your explanation about that? Why I have to pay $180 for that? And it's not even a great fragrance. I'm sorry to say. So that's it, my friend. I hope that you enjoyed that long chat. Thank you, Dushan. If you are still here, I am very grateful that you are here. And I wish you to have a pleasant day. Have a great time. Do whatever you do. I am a vintage lover, and I stay a vintage lover. I will not change my mind. Vintage fragrances were by far better than today's fragrances. Stay fragrant. Okay, have fun. Have fun. Have fun. Some coffee. Coffee at this time? Oh, I don't know. Well, okay. Why not? Have a cappuccino and enjoy your evening. Stay fragrant. Wear only what you want to wear. Don't follow the hype because the hype might fool you. God bless you all. We will talk soon. You too. Bye bye. Cheerio.